This is FE Peer Review, the Flat Earth Peer Review channel. The date is October the 13th, 2020. This is a video in response to a video by Ranty with the URL below. Some 2 years back, Ranty put together this video in which he set two small objects at one distance of a racetrack and then walked down to the other end and using his camera tried to determine if they would disappear from bottom up on a flat surface. They did not, as was clearly evident by the video footage he took. This issue has arisen again in the last few days, and Ranty brought that image up in a live stream and addressed the question of these objects not appearing to disappear from bottom up. He claims that they do. So we're going to examine his claim that these objects actually disappear from bottom up. This is a close-up screenshot from the live stream of the other day, October 9th, 2020. We see this little figure of a Buddha and then this little egg sitting on top of what I believe is a ring, if I remember correctly. And this is a close-up view from standing near to the objects, and they're in nice, clear, sharp focus because we're close to them. Ranty showed this close-up, and you see he's got his mouse right here. He is going to emphasize this little line here. He wants to make a point about the figure using this little line as a reference. He's not referring to anything down here, which is, I believe, the leg or the knee, the foot or the knee of the Buddha figure, other marks that are more strongly evident than this line. He is going to focus on this faint line that we see here. He has accentuated it with this little black line that he's drawn over it. Here we are closer still. We see it's a line of barely a pixel in width. It might be 2 pixels, hard to tell. Anyway, it's a very thin line compared to these other marks. This is relevant to what's coming up. This is the upper image taken from the opposite end of the racetrack. And we see the large figure here of the Buddha, and we see his mouse, Ranty's mouse, poised over this little indentation right here. And he is going to claim in his video, and you've got the timestamps here if you want to go hear what he has to say himself. He's going to claim that this indentation that we see here is that little line that he was drawing over. So here was the indentation. He drew a little black line over it to show what he claims is the little line where my mouse is moving right now. And he's claiming that this whole section of the figurine has disappeared. There's the combined images. This was the close-up image, the faint line that he accentuated earlier, and the foot or knee of the figurine, and the further distant image in which he's claiming that this is the line right there. And he's claiming that this whole section of the statue has disappeared. I've cropped away the stuff that was irrelevant, and I'm going to use the space on either side to examine that claim. Okay, so I've just made a copy of this and moved it over here so we can see it side by side. Some guidelines I've put in. We have, starting at the top, we have a head. Bald head at the top, bald head. We have an ear on the left side of the screen and a shoulder. On the other side, we have a shoulder. We go over the bald head, we have an ear, we have a shoulder, we have a shoulder. Continuing down our right side, the left side of the figurine, our right side, we have the shoulder, we have some folds of fabric, and then we have kind of an indentation, and then another bunch of folds and an indentation. Taking a look at the more distant view, we have the head, we have the shoulder, we have the first indentation, that's the chest of the figure here. We have the knee coming out, that's here. And then we have this indentation area here, kind of an hourglass shape almost. That is this. Gotta stop. So head, shoulder, chest, knee, there's an indentation, and then there's a foot. Head, shoulder, chest, knee, an indentation, and then the foot. Coming down the other side, we have head, ear, shoulder, some folds of fabric coming down, and then it wraps around. Head, ear, shoulder, some folds of fabric, it comes down and it wraps around. Nothing is missing, despite Ranty's claim that something's missing. Take a look at the egg. We've got the ring down here. We've got the ring here. And we've got the egg. Now, very obviously, the distant photograph is stretched upward. At that distance on the track, there's a distortion entering the picture that's stretching the objects proportionally upward. But nothing is disappearing. We have a kind of reflection, a sort of inferior mirage effect beginning to happen down here at the bottom of the objects. Let's have a little fun with these guys now, and let's see if I can make this bit look like that without removing any material from the bottom, i.e. nothing disappearing below the horizon. We will start by selecting this bit here. And then we will scale. Bring the bottom down a little bit. I'm not going to try to do the mirage effect. That's not my point. My point is that we can make this look like this without any of the bottom disappearing. Okay, that's scaled about right vertically. Now let's see if we can try doing a little blur on it. Let's try some Gaussian blur. Too much. It's pretty close. We would need to pixelate it a little bit because the camera is zoomed in and we're getting a bit of pixelation. Give it a try, why not? I'm not sure about this, but we'll try this. Mosaic. Yeah, there we go. Let's go down. Try about 4. That's pretty close. We could do the same to the egg. We can select the egg. And we will scale it. That's really the most important aspect of this transformation, is showing that this thing scales quite nicely without losing any of its lower parts. In other words, nothing is disappearing below the horizon. This flat plane is not getting rid of anything. Let's filter that with some blur. Looks good. And we'll pixelate it a little bit. Could use a bit more blur. Right, there you go. So what do I see? I see nothing of the object disappearing below. It's not disappearing from bottom up. We still see the foot or knee here of the figurine, the bit that was down here. That's right there, precisely where it was, where you'd expect it to be. The right edge of it centered under the head, while that little notch that Ranty had mentioned was way over here towards the right edge, not centered. The knee is on the center. So this is undoubtedly this, which is a much stronger shadow. And this little line that he pointed out pretty much disappeared, as you'd expect, because it's already so faint in the image. Okay, enough of that. I want to carry this to its completion here. Now we're looking at a equidistant azimuthal map, sometimes referred to as a Gleason map, that some flat earthers in the past have referred to as a flat earth map. Most of them now have the good sense not to. In fact, most of them have the good sense not to present any kind of a flat earth model, because every flat earth model they've ever presented has been ridiculously flaw-ridden and easy to disprove. So they have figured out they're best off not presenting any model rather than make a claim they can't support, since they can't support any of their claims. So here we are looking at the map that was in the past frequently used by them. And I have just this to say, which is all of these discussions about perspective and disappearing from the bottom up and all of this stuff is really nothing but a distraction perpetrated by the flat earth proponents who know full well that they cannot provide the one simplest, most convincing proof of a flat earth, and that is an accurate to scale flat earth map. They simply can't do it. They have had years and years. Some of these guys have been on YouTube for 7 years making videos, and never have they produced a flat earth map that is accurate and to scale. And it's a very simple test to make. Take 2 points on the map, measure the distance on the map according to the scale, check the distance in the real world and see if it matches. Do that for a few points, a few pairs of points, a dozen pairs of points, and you will find that it just does not work. So really, until they have actually produced a flat earth map, all their arguments, whether it's about perspective or gravity, density, or gas in containers, or whatever it is, it's all really just a distraction from the very evident reality they cannot produce a map. Now, I know that it sounds like a big deal to produce a map of the world, but really it doesn't have to cover every square mile of the planet to prove that the concept has got legs. Take the continents. Forget Antarctica. We won't even go there, since it's hard to get to and it's cold and it's expensive to get there. Flat earthers have supporters all over the world. You know, these guys at the top of their little ladder, they claim at least to have supporters all over the world who are eager to find the truth. And all they need to do is get some volunteers and take some measurements. Get people on every continent except Antarctica. I don't expect to have supporters in Antarctica. To take some measurements, drive. So here's an idea, one way to do it. Let's take a look at Google Maps. I used to live on the west coast of the USA, and I would make a drive from Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Portland. This is a drive I did regularly. I would map this out on Google Maps, and I would find that drive was within a mile or two of what my odometer would end up showing up after a drive like that. It's pretty accurate. I mention that because it's basically a way to calibrate. Take Google Maps or any mapping application you like and calibrate it against your own odometer on your car. Some decent distance. It doesn't have to be the entire west coast of the United States, but 100 miles from one city to another. Check the map, do the drive, see if your odometer matches the map. If it does, you've got a pretty reliable source for a distance on the ground. Now, Jos Lees did a video where he showed, let me find it, this image, 4 cities. Now, they're 4 cities on 4 separate continents, so they're hard to measure, the distances between them. But if you can measure the distance between these 4 cities, for example, plus the diagonals, and if you can make those measurements that you've taken on the ground in the real world fit on a flat plane, then you've measured a flat plane. If those distances don't measure on a flat plane, then you haven't measured a flat plane. In Jos's video, he shows what happens when you take these distances for these 4 cities in this combination. Now, it doesn't have to be those 4 cities in order to work. It's good if it would be far enough apart, like Seattle, Los Angeles, Atlanta, in New York. That would work. If you did a careful road trip, take a week off, get together with some friends, or maybe several different volunteers across the country do it, and you check your odometers against the maps you're using, and you've determined that the maps are reliable, distant for giving you distances on the ground, you do the drives. Have a nice time. Take a few days, drive from LA up to Seattle, see the sights along the way, take some careful measurements of your distance as you travel. Do that and do those 4 cities. And if you can map those distances on a flat surface, you've measured a flat surface. That's all it would take. You don't have to map the whole world. That would be already very powerful proof. So what are you waiting for, guys? More distractions, or are you going to get to work and actually measure something?